I'm Michael Sherman, the director of the Skeptic Society, the publisher of this Skeptic magazine. When you join the Skeptic Society, today for only $25, you can get the subscription to the magazine, the decoder ring, the secret handshake. We'll tell you the true meaning of the Da Vinci Code. All things are possible through science. Okay. And we do these lecture series once or twice a month on Sunday afternoons. The next one is coming up on Sunday, March 12th. Dr. Walter Goldschmidt, a UCLA anthropologist, will be lecturing on the bridge to humanity. That is, something happened around 35,000 years ago that caused one group of hominids to explode with culture and art and whatever else, and that turned out to be us, and all the rest disappeared somewhere. They probably weren't abducted by aliens, so has something to do with our big brains, and he's going to be lecturing about that on Sunday, April 9th. By the way, all this is on this flyer. You can pick it up on the way out. You can go to our webpage, skeptic.com. It's all there. I'm also going to hand out, there's a couple of these floating around. This is the eSkeptic sign-up sheet. All we need is your email address. It's free. It's a weekly. Let's go ahead and take that and start passing around. It's a weekly sign-up sort of notification of upcoming lectures, events, op-ed pieces, reviews, articles, and whatnot. Tim Flannery is lecturing on Sunday, April 9th. He's the Australian environmental scientist who will be talking about global warming, global climate change, I guess is the proper way to say it. Because sometimes when things get hotter, they get colder elsewhere. Anyway, it's just change. The Weather Makers is his book about how humans have altered the environment in dramatic ways. Bob Trivers is labeled by Time magazine as one of the most important scientists of the 20th century. He's considered the greatest evolutionary theorist probably since Darwin and maybe Ernst Mayr. Robert Trivers has a book out called Genes in Conflict, and he'll be lecturing about this. Within our own bodies, we have conflicting motives between our selfish genes and our, whatever else you want to call them, altruistic nice genes or something like that. Genes, of course, aren't selfish or nice. They're just replicating molecules, but this gets translated into behavior that we label as that. And then finally, you should have, or most of you should have, this flyer, which is for our conference. So we are starting to take sign-ups today for the conference, which is the first weekend in June, Saturday in Beckman Auditorium, the big white, huge round building that way, I guess. And so this is the environmental wars, the science behind the politics. And that is, we've got a whole lineup of speakers. I've got left-wing scientists, I got right-wing scientists, I got scientists with no wings at all. I got optimists, I got pessimists, I got paleontologists, archaeologists, people that study current trends. So we're going to cover the whole spectrum, starting with David Baltimore, the president of CalTech, will kick it off. We've got Michael Crichton on the other side, who will be, and Ron Bailey, the Reason Magazine science editor, who is skeptical of a lot of the environmental claims. We have Chris Mooney, who wrote the book, The Republican War on Science. I've got just hardcore Caltech scientists that do nothing but study molecules in the atmosphere, that kind of stuff. So we got quite a broad range. David Goodstein wrote the book, Out of Gas. Not quite yet, but you know, it's coming, maybe. And so all these things are under debate. We may even have Al Gore, if you can believe that. I met Al Gore this weekend at a conference, and it turns out he's just a hell of an entertaining guy, unlike what we saw on TV, which was too bad. Seriously, he's quite passionate and he's very funny. This was a conference with him and Tony Robbins in the same room. Tony Robbins actually, he's quite a character. This is a room full of pretty much high achievers, so you know, what is he going to say to motivate these people? So he said, have any of you ever failed at anything? And yes, of course, everybody's failed at something. And then he says, and what are some of the excuses you've had? You know, call them out. What are some of the reasons? You know, I didn't have enough money, or I didn't have this or that. And they said, well, I didn't have enough money. I didn't have enough contacts. I didn't have the funding. I didn't have the time. Al Gore yells out, I didn't have the Supreme Court. It's very funny. So, so that's what we've got coming up, and then we're dark for the summers as usual. So make sure you get on our list. Go to skeptic.com, put it on your calendar. That's some of the events we have coming up. Just two comments before we start on today's topic. Just sort of reviewing things we have been doing or upcoming. David Irving, as you probably saw, got jailed for 3 years for his Holocaust denial in Austria, and I wrote an op-ed piece that appeared in the LA Times on Wednesday, essentially defending David Irving, who I've spent the last 12 years debunking. And there are certain principles, I think, that go above just the straight debunking, and that is freedom of speech. So I'll just read the last paragraph here. We have to defend Irving in order to defend ourselves. Once the laws are in place to jail dissenters of Holocaust history, what's to stop such laws from being applied to dissenters of religious or political histories, or to skepticism of any sort that deviates from the accepted canon? Since I have a magazine called Skeptic, I thought should be concerned about these things. You never know. No one should be required to facilitate the expression of Holocaust denial. For example, these guys have sent ads to us. They want to buy an ad in Skeptic. I said, no thanks. That's not free speech. You're free to run ads or not, help them or not. We're talking about government intervention. As what Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis called the silence coerced by law, the argument of force in its worst form. The point was poignantly made in Robert Bolt's play A Man for All Seasons, in which William Roper and Sir Thomas More debate the relative balance between evil and freedom. So Roper says, so now you would give the devil benefit of law? And More says, yes. What would you do? Cut a great road through the law to get after the devil? And Roper says, I'd cut down every law in England to do that. And More says, oh, and when the law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide? Yes, I'd give the devil the benefit of law for my own safety's sake. So call David Irving a devil if you want. The principle of free speech says you can. But we have to give the devil his due to protect ourselves. Anyway, that's my statement on that. So by way of introduction for Dan Dennett today, since we're dealing with a deep form and an emotionally loaded form of pattern-seeking behavior, humans are pattern-seeking animals, we tend to see patterns. They're fun patterns like the face on Mars from the Viking mission, and of course this is a low-resolution, sort of low-resolution image, a high-grained, a higher resolution image from 2001. If you squint, you can still see the face pop up. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit larger by backing this up just a tiny bit. And that's a good idea. How's that? Okay, I'm going to bring this back just a little bit. And let's see. How's that? Okay, close your left eye, close your right. Okay, if you do squint, you can see the face pops back out again. And what you're doing by squinting is you're reducing the quality of the data. You're bringing it back to the old image. Yeah, that probably helps a little bit there. So when the patterns are obvious, you can see the happy face on Mars. There he is there. If astronomers were frogs, they'd see images such as Kermit the Frog. We're programmed by evolution to see faces. We're programmed to see things that are important to us. We're not frogs, nor are we elephants. But things that have religious intonations. There's Our Lady of Guadalupe and Our Lady of Watsonville. Tree bark is terrific for these kinds of pattern-seeking behaviors because they're splotchy and you can find, like in clouds, whatever you're looking for. The Virgin Mary in Sao Paulo on the side of a glass window. Here's the cheese sandwich, the Virgin Mary on a cheese sandwich, which I actually got to hold the cheese sandwich. The Virgin Mary was, you can see it there. A casino purchased the cheese sandwich for $28,500 on eBay, where she now resides in a casino in Las Vegas. You can see somebody took a bite out of her before the... And I was trying to think, what pattern does this really look like? The iconography of the Virgin Mary through the Middle Ages? Well, not really. More like Jane Russell.